almost lost his life. So when I wrote this book, again, I wrote it between the material I gathered between 2012, 2014, and when you do that, when you follow, certain people, activists, young people, and you follow their lives, you really see what happens. And so this story is kind of a horror story in a sense, but also what happens to young people when we really believe in them. And not in an individualistic, heroic kind of way, which is the problem with this book. How do we do it, structurally, politically? How do we change the conditions so that all children have the chance of, living healthy lives? And so, obviously, this is a love story between us. In a way, Elijah, I was a very isolated, lonely person at the time when he moved in. I was around 30. I had organized my life in a way where I needed love, but I was too afraid of loving. And then this little kid with the biggest heart came into my life. And I thought, I'm here to help him for a short period of time, make sure that he's safe, and then he has to move back or whatever. But what happened was, this is something I saw again when I wrote, and of course after Elijah had moved out, that he really opened up the possibility for me to be more courageous when it came to letting people in. And this is also kind of a cliche. I was afraid when this book would come out that people would say, yeah, right. But this was actually what happened. And there was this mentor at his school that told him and Elijah and me, we were on TV. It was a short clip of us on TV right before he moved, and he went to school the other day, and his mentor said, "This Nick, is he single?" And so Elijah said, "Yeah, he's waiting for the one. He's very picky." And Amelie, which she's called, she said, because I have a sister, Amina, she's a doctor, she's very beautiful. Yeah, no, but she's very special. And then Amelie showed a picture of Amina, and Elijah was like, "She's really beautiful." And he ran home, and I was laying in the tub, and I remember him knocking on the door, saying, "Nick, I found her." and he kept on doing that. When I told him, for example, that I had written a lot about us, he was like, "It's going to become a bestseller. Yeah, you wait and see. It's going to become a movie on Netflix. It's either or." And he's always been like that. And so this Amna, I told him, "Okay, you're not a matchmaker. Leave me alone. If I add her on Facebook, will you stop annoying me?" "Yes." And I did. Like a week later, and we went on a date, and I came back, and he was like, "I told you, one day you'll thank me." And so, bada bing, bada boom. This is Amna and the family today, 10 years later, and this is Olivia, Dahlia, and Olivia is the goddaughter to Elijah. And you can see the food. Now he's a professional basketball player, but so when he comes home, he's like, "What do you want?" "I just want, regular, really Swedish type of food." And he eats more than all of us four together. And of course, in their eyes, my children, Amna's children's eyes, he is like, an idol now. So it's really nice. And I tell this story also because this is, again, what we need to do. So we have to put this into a system. Not, of course, taking other people's kids home, but creating opportunities for the families to take care of their kids and the environment that the kids grow up in to be safe and so on. So I take 5 minutes, Cecilia, and then I'm off, okay? It's 22. Anyway, so I'll tell you very briefly, and hopefully we can talk more about this later. But so the organization that I work for, Hela Malmö, nowadays, I worked for the organization since 2004. Nowadays, I'm more out and try to be a very annoying person, talk about social justice, and really work with communities and organizations to get more organized and demand their rights and so on. But I do work with the organization still, and this is what I looked like back in those days. I had a Manshishi hairdo. A long time ago. Anyway, so we had this idea of working with young people, giving them something to do in their spare time. This is Julie Janet Bennett, they're dance instructors, and we said, okay, so this is not good enough. It's not good enough to just offer them sports and so on. We have to also give them, arenas where they can meet on their own premises. So this is Malmö Festival, where we arrange, every year for a million years we've been here to gather all the youth. This is Elijah here. This is where we met. And also we said that's not good enough, so we kind of took to the streets, people from those areas organizing, having this, we kind of look like a gang, we kind of are like a gang. And actually, all jokes aside, we think in very similar ways to criminal gangs. So what they do, they offer young children three things, mainly. One is a social context. They become part of something. And a lot of these kids, they feel they are part of nothing. So that's what the gangs offer them. They offer them, young adult role models who can, really see them and care for them. And then the third thing is they create opportunities for them, right? So those three things the gangs are really good at, and that's what we thought we can. That's how we've also been working. But that's not good enough either. So the last thing we did, or what we do today, which is the most interesting thing I've done for all of these years, is to establish social infrastructures in vulnerable areas. So we cannot just offer sports or something for them to do in the spare time and so on. We have to think kind of the whole context, the area they grow up in. How can we better the whole area? What we call this is social infrastructure. So what we did was in 2017, we took over these facilities, 1,000 square meters, in the heart of one of these areas. We started mapping the needs and wants in the area. And so it's about what do you young people need? What do the parents need in this specific area? And also we looked at, okay, what do they not say? For example, there was this open drug sale in the area that needed to go. How can we work, not calling the police, but make sure that we still work with that? So 50 activities from one day to another we implemented. We built libraries, served food 3 times a day, built a gym, and so on and so forth. You see, this is going very quickly. This is the quickest I've ever said this. We opened up the facilities in the autumn of 2018. And here you see me. I'm very conscious of the camera guy, so I'm tucking my tummy in. You can see. But what it says, in 1 year, and this is absolutely key, this is what I think we should do in all of, especially in Europe, because we see similar patterns in a lot of our cities, urban communities. We should do the same thing, work with social infrastructure, which is really pulling the resources from other parts of the city into the area. But the people living there has to decide what they need. They have to control and work and get organized. And we have to help them with that. And what happened in 1 year was that the sense of safety rose by almost 8% in 1 year, which is what was the most in all of the city. And the city said themselves that the only reason for this is because Hela Malmö has implemented a social infrastructure. And by that, I say thank you so much. And I'll be around.